We used to play in these row of fir trees there, climbing. Oh my God, it was a heaven to us to climb these fir trees. On one side of the fir trees was agricultural land. On the other side was grazing land for cattle. On the agricultural side, it was grandfather, when the chap was ploughing the field, and the tractors then were all iron wheels, no tyres on them. And he would let us have a ride on the tractor. You wouldn't get it these days because it's health and safety business, they'd be on you like a rocket. But then it was wonderful for us kids to have a ride on the tractor, and he'd let us have a little drive as well. And on the next field, that was very, very good for mushrooms. We used to get our mushrooms in that field. The next playing field we called Garner's Field. Clive would remember this. Garner's Field was between the corner of Spring Road and the railway line. This is where we organised our football matches and games, in Garner's Field. And on one occasion, one or two occasions, a chap called Ray Hill, who lived along Elster Road, him and his friend, they had an old motorbike, weren't allowed to ride it, but they was older than us. They pushed this motorbike down to Garner's Field, and when that was on, we was on the back. We were racing round this field on this old motorcycle. It happened to be one time when I was on it, not Ray wasn't in charge of it, but his friend was. And one of these obstacles was poking up in the ground, what the railway put, you know, to let you know where the grounds are. Well, unfortunately, he didn't miss it. He hit it, and we went hurtling over the handlebars. Got up again, got on the bicycle, and still went around the field. But of course, in 1937, all our play areas went, because these people here, the Howards, gave 4 acres of land for a park. Now this is where, I think it was 1937, then we all had our own piece of ground. We could play here, and up one end of this park, my goodness, there was everything you wanted as a child. A slide, a rocking horse, a seesaw, roundabouts, swings, and of course, the park keeper with uniform and hat to keep us under control. We were not allowed in the spinney, which ran alongside Bever, unless you were accompanied by an adult. But of course, as children, we knew when he went to lunch, because on the corner of Margate Road and Bedford Road was the Consumers. And up on the Consumers, there was I think it was in the shape of a teapot, a clock. So we knew to the minute when he was coming back by that clock. And of course, there were 2 good conker trees in that park. You weren't allowed to do anything in that. Only when the park people went were we conker splashing, as it was called, throwing sticks up to knock the conkers down. We had a great time. And another, I'll go back to another period of this. Being a Methodist, christened in the Methodist Church, when I came out in the afternoon session at school there, I went to my grandparents for dinner in the evening. And his 2 front windows upstairs, we got a telescope and binoculars to watch any movement going on in the fields, on which are now full of shops and houses, of course, but then it was just fields, which grew vegetables and potatoes and that. We would sit up that window looking for any movement in the field. And there was a clump of trees, as my grandfather called them, the clump, which is where the police station is built now. And he would say, look, Alan, over in the clump, quick, some movement over there. When the police station was built and the clump went, again, that was a play area for our kids. When we went in, when the workmen went over, I remember going up into the rafters there, having a game whilst the police station was being built. They were playing quoits. And I'm talking about the quoits now where there was an iron thing poked up in the middle, you threw horseshoes at it. And apparently there was a dispute going on between the 2 quoits, and the fight broke out in the road, and 40 people were taking part. It was 40 men, and one policeman arrived, and he told the Wooden boys, men, that they had got to go. And the Wooden, so I suppose there was a fight between Wooden and Kempston.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about what it was like in the war?
I can indeed. I was a messenger boy to start with, and we had...
Sorry, what's a messenger boy?
Yes, a messenger boy for the ARP, Air Raid Precautions. And our post was the A4 post in a front room in Margaret's Road. That's where we gathered when the siren went. I was a messenger boy. I later became a warden there, and my partner in crime was Charlie Sugars. When the warden went, we patrolled Bedford Road and opened the air raid shelter for the public to go in when the air raid warden siren went. That shelter still exists today, and I would rather like to see either Kempston Council or Bedford Borough really do something about it, because I would think that that's probably the only existing shelter of its kind in England.
Where is it?
Just at the bottom of the park here. You know the lodge, the only lodge that still remains here for this house. Behind that, it's still up. And it's still there. And we used to open that air raid shelter and close it to the public.
It's in their garden, isn't it?
Yes, but perhaps some sort of, when they sell it or whatever, perhaps something could be done to preserve it. It could probably become a museum to the war with articles that have gone on during the war, could be housed in there, photographs of it. As I said, we used to patrol that. My father, his rank was the senior warden of that post. We had a purposely built post after that, built down Farrar Street, opposite the council yard and which was next to the fire station. I was on duty there one evening with Ray Lowe, who has now passed away. The sirens had gone and we heard this noise coming along, and it was a doodlebug. And we went outside and looked down, and it looked to us as though it was travelling along Elster Road, flames coming out the back, doodlebug. And of course, directly the flames stopped and the engine stopped. The thing went down. Well, luckily, it carried on, and it landed in Stewartby, doing no harm to anybody. Everything. I did take a walk, if you're getting away from the war, if you want, down to the mill.
Just keep with war a minute. How many times did people use the air raid shelter? Do you know?
Yes, it's got to be very few towards the end. You know, you get perhaps 2 or 3 going in it towards the end of it, but there used to be several, you know, in numbers, 10 or 11 perhaps would go in there. A hold, I would think, if you was a bit of a push, crammed in there about 40. You know, sardine type fashion. Yeah.
Did people have their own air raid shelters?
We did. My father built one at 7 Gates.
What was it like?
Great. It was concrete. Went down, we had a couple of beds in there. And that's filled in now, of course. But during the hot weather, I would say you'd still see the bottom part of it and the surrounds of it. Yeah, it was a great house. All sorts of things we had in there, just in case.
Yeah.
And because there was a large bomb, as you probably know, they're called a parachute bomb, landed just the other side of the barracks.
I've heard about that.
And the other one landed where that temple is now. And you know that huge temple in Queen's Park? The other one landed about there. And those of us who remember it, that threw mud up onto Bedford Road. And you could get a bus in the crater, a double-decker. In the crater there. That caused a bit of havoc along there.
But no one was killed, were they?
No, luckily. Yeah, they missed the barracks. Yeah, not far off though. Not far off at all. No.
So you want to tell us about this walk you took?
Yes. It was late in this summer, if you could call it a summer, that is. We had lunch at the King William. And my family and I, we thought we'd go for a walk down to the middle. Eventually got to the bridge, of course. That brought back memories. And that where a friend and I, Eric Whittemore, we used to fish from that bridge as boys. I looked downstream towards Bedford, and there, about 50, 60 yards from the bridge, used to be an island. No longer there, of course. By the side of that island, as a lad, the water was about up to here, and we taught ourselves to swim by that island. And that part of from the bridge to that island was a very, very good picnic area and paddling area for children at that time. We walked over the field then to the other little bridge, which is another great fishing area at the time, but sadly now there was just a trickle of water going under the bridge and it was well overgrown. We walked back again to where the mill pond was, which was once turbulent. Water there, churning over the water, but due to the mill wheel, but now it's silent, running still. And I walked further up we did to where the river had been diverted. Now before it was diverted, as children and people, we used to walk through a little clump of trees over to the sluice gates. We walked across the sluice gates to the other side of the river, the bank the other side. Another glorious picnic area where we used to call these the overs. And at the bottom of the overs was another fine swimming and bathing area. Now, the top of the overs we knew as the main. Now this main river used to work the watermill. That was for the watermill alone. And once you could swim the main from bank to bank, you were a recognised swimmer. Now, I'd be about 13, perhaps 12, 13 at the time, down there, doing our stuff, and stunts, jumping, diving. The air raid siren went. We all, and the German aircraft approached, quite visible, so we all dashed under that clump of trees, which no longer exists now, of course. But in case, of course, that pilot had other ideas as to why we was under there, but everything passed peacefully, of course. And the siren went, and we went back to what we were doing, our activities. And coming back from there, that walk, it looked very unkempt to what it used to look. And where once, at that time of day, a lovely day it was, it would be thronging with people. We met but two, and they were there merely to exercise their dogs. Those halcyon days, but how times have changed. And that's about all I have to say.
Yeah, okay. Lovely. Thank you.